Hi, I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and in this video, I'm going to share with you, in my opinion, the best free ebook on the internet. I did not write this. Actually, this is a book written by Dan Sullivan. He's the founder of Strategic Coach. He has been coaching entrepreneurs for the last 40 years. This is not although this book is primed for entrepreneurs, this book is very good for anyone. It's very practical for just about anyone. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so that you can know where to get this ebook. It's at if you just type in strategiccoach.com, Gap in the Gain, or if you Google Gap in the Gain, also the link is down below. All you have to do is put your name in, get your free copy. It's called The Gap in the Gain. So here's really what the idea is about. The idea of this book is that we all have a horizon in our future. We all have ideals. We all have dreams. We all have goals. And if you focus on the distance between you and your goal, you're going to be in what he calls the gap. You're never going to necessarily feel happy if you're always filling in the gap. You could be a billionaire and be in the gap. I'll give an example of my daughter. So I have 5 kids, and the gap is when you're focused on what's not there. It's like when my wife spends an hour making a really nice dinner and my kids get to the table and they're like, oh, it's not what I wanted. That's the gap. When you're in the gap, you never appreciate what you have because you're always focused on what it's not. Even if you have a great relationship, or it's so easy to be in the gap with people. It's so easy to be in the gap with your kids. It's easy to focus on what's not there or what's not perfect. It's easy to be in the gap about yourself. It's easy to be in the gap about your future. So what Dan Sullivan talks about instead is to focus on the gain. So for example, when my kids come to dinner and my wife has just spent an hour making the meal, there's actually a gain. There's food on the table. That's a gain. And so the gain is really about focusing on what you have, and there are gains all over the place. Let me just give a few examples of how you can use the gain in the gap. One is about how you frame your past. So we've all gone through hard things in our past. We've all experienced trauma to some degree or another. Trauma is any negative event that negatively impacts you, that you hold on to. Well, if you were to view negative experiences from the past from the perspective of the gain rather than the gap, then you could become better instead of being bitter. So for example, my parents got divorced when I was 11 years old. My dad became a drug addict for a great period of time while I was going through junior high and high school. He's now no longer a drug addict. He's actually one of my best friends. Now I can look at the past from the perspective of the gap or the gain. The fact is if you choose to look at it from the gain, then you actually get all sorts of benefits, because the truth is that all past experiences could be filled with lots of gains. Even COVID-19 could have lots of gains if you choose to look at it. What are the gains? What are the gifts? But another aspect of looking at things from the gain is just honestly taking the time to appreciate the distance between your current self and your former self. That's what Dan Sullivan ultimately recommends. Rather than measuring yourself against your ideal, you measure yourself against where you were before. And when you take the time to measure yourself against where you were before, you'll feel momentum. You'll feel confidence because you'll see that you've actually made progress. And that's really the thing to measure yourself from. That's the only tangible thing you can measure yourself against, is where you were before. There's actually a great quote from Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway said, "True nobility is not being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is about being superior to your former self." So where were you 30 days ago? And what are some of the gains? What's some of the progress you've made in the last 30 days, either as a person or towards your goals? What are some of the things you've learned? What are some of the bad habits you've broke? What's some of the progress you've made towards your dreams? What about in the last 5 years? Compare your current self with your former self from 5 years ago. What are the gains? What are the progress you've made? I have a friend, a friend of ours, family friends of ours. They're going through some serious financial difficulties right now. And it's easy to focus on the gap when things are going difficult. But I asked him, we sat together and we were having dinner. I said, I want you to just think about, where were you guys 6 months ago? Have you guys actually made progress in the last 6 months towards improving your financial future? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, what would happen if you just focused on the gain? Yeah, you need to have goals. Yeah, you need to make plans and move forward. But if you're constantly measuring yourself against where you were before, you'll always recognize that you're making progress. That will lead you to feeling happy, feeling momentum, and ultimately that's how you build confidence. Because from a psychology standpoint, confidence is the byproduct of recent past performance. And so when you're taking the time to measure yourself against where you just were, you get the benefit of seeing that progress. Not only do you get to feel momentum, but you get to feel confidence. And that confidence will propel you to taking more and more action towards your future self. So I highly recommend this ebook, The Gap and the Gain. It's written by probably the best entrepreneurial coach to ever live, Dan Sullivan. It's free. You can get the link below. I get no incentive from you buying this book. I just love it. It's something that's changed how I parent my kids. Focusing on the gap is not a good way to be a parent. It's not a good way to be in any relationship, even with yourself. Focusing on the gains, seeing how much my kids, for example, I adopted 3 kids from the foster system. Actually seeing the gains allows me to not focus on the gaps, because everyone's got gaps. Of course, every kid's got gaps. But if you focus on the gain, you're shocked at how much they've actually improved. You actually get to recognize and appreciate how much they've improved and how much you've improved, and you have improved. Your life has gotten better. And so I recommend you take the time to regularly appreciate and measure those gains. So get the gain in the gap. Have an amazing day. Subscribe to this channel. I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Have an amazing day.